All right, so hey, you guys, welcome to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast. My name is Shakiria, also known as Shy, and I'm your host, and I'm here to help you gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. So today, I have a very good episode. I have a very good guest coming on, and I can't wait for him to tell us who he is and what he does, and all the amazing things that he's accomplished along his journey. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Tell the people who you are and what you do, and where can we find you?
All right. So I'm Brandon Sims. I actually reside in Atlanta, Georgia. Right now, I work in the software industry. So currently, I'm actually working in software test automation. So, I mean, that's what I do. It's been a long journey, but I love it.
Ooh, okay, so are you on any social media platforms at this moment? So I can add your handle to the to the show notes.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been getting hit up like left and right, so many inbox messages. So I kind of lay dormant a little bit. I do have a LinkedIn handle and I do hop on and off sometimes. So yeah, I'll give you that handle. So if anybody wants to check me out occasionally, then like I said, I'll hop in and off.
Great. Okay, so I'll make sure to add it to the show notes when ready. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty here. So how did you find your passion into tech?
Oh my gosh, you know what? It's so funny because everybody asks me that. So I'll take a step back to high school. So when I was in high school, I was about 13 years old. And I'll never forget the summers, even some of the weekends during school, my dad would wake me up. I'd be in my bunk bed, and he'll wake me up. Hey, time for us to go to work. And I'm like, what? I'm 13 years old. I don't feel like working. But but he wake me up. We go work on some houses, so my dad, he remodeled homes. So it was a really great experience. And there was a summer, me and my cousin, we were on a roof and we replaced the shingles. We repaired the roof, and next couple of days, the customer called and he was like, "Hey, my shingles fell off my roof. Y'all need to come up here and put these shingles back on." My cousin was like, "Man, I'm not getting back on that roof." And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, "I don't want to do this the rest of my life." So, so my aunt, my aunt, she actually had a boyfriend at the time, and I gotta say, I'm really grateful for him. Uh, and a lot of people in the tech industry, well, I'd say in the medical tech industry, may know of him, Craig Simon. I'll never forget a lot of the things that he taught me. But at the time, he was working for a teleconferencing company where you basically install like a teleconferencing uh, hardware for customers, right? At the time, during the summers when I wasn't working on the houses, we would go and install these video conferencing systems for uh, schools like UGA, Georgia Tech, all the big names like that, And I was doing that. I was like, oh man. I was like, I'm in the air conditioner. I love this. I'm still working my hands, but it's not so hot outside. I'm not on top of a roof. And at the time, I was like, I need to change something. So if I go further back, when I was a young kid, I was actually just talking to my son about this the other day, is that I actually wanted to be a lawyer.
Really?
So yeah, yep, I want to be a lawyer. And then um, what happened was, after the summers, after I got through high school and everything, I actually went to school and I studied pre-law. I was like, this isn't it. Too much reading. So I was like, I don't want to read about these court cases and everything. So at the time, I changed the major. I changed my major to telecommunications, and I really liked it. It was all right, but I took a bad turn in life. I wouldn't say too terribly bad. I didn't go to jail or anything like that, but I'll just say life happened. And then over the course of time, I went to the Air Force. Went to the Air Force, and at that time, I actually got hurt in the Air Force in Alaska. So I got hurt, got medically retired, and I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't just sit back and wait for something to happen, you know, because I mean they take care of you, but a lot of people think they really take care of you. They don't. So at that time, I was like, I gotta do something. So I went back to school. At the time, I went back to school for computer engineering, actually. And, I take it back to when we were working on those systems for, UGA, Georgia Tech, installing all that stuff. And I knew I had a passion for it. I just needed to understand where exactly that passion was. And I realized that it was actually in the software of it all. So did that, computer engineering. Then after that, I got out of the military, and then I did find a job, moved back to Georgia because at the time, I was in Alaska. Then I went to South Carolina, then moved back to Georgia, and rented a place and met a guy who owned a company for basically installing security and fire alarms and everything. So did that for a little bit. It was similar to what I did in high school. The only difference was that we were installing, like security systems instead of video conferencing systems. And then we were installing cameras and everything at schools. So that was pretty cool. Um, so we started installing the cameras, and it was a similar situation, to be honest. Install the cameras, and because I was injured from the military, I started having issues with my back and everything. I was like, yeah, this isn't it. So I talked to the owner. I said, you know what? How about I just start, you know, coding the cameras, getting the cameras configured with the IP addresses and everything and connecting those all together. And he's like, you know what? That's a good idea. Started doing that. And I was like, there's still something more. There's something more. So I actually got a flyer. There was a flyer for a career or job fair, basically. It was slated for the military. And I'll never forget, I went there, and there was another guy, and he was sitting there and he had the software running. And I was like, how is it just running by itself? The software's just going by itself. He was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, what we do is software test automation. I was like, so it just does it by itself? Because I didn't know, know. And he was like, yeah. He was like, actually, I'm hosting a boot camp. And if you come to the boot camp, you can just, learn what we do and possibly get a job. I was like, oh, okay, we'll see. So I called him up, got invited to the boot camp. It was about, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 of those, or 13 or 14 of us
Mhm.
in the course. But he did hold, a lot of those courses. So learned everything about the software. Initially, I didn't get a job, but I kept going. I didn't just sit back, I didn't just sit back and wait. I didn't wait for a call. I just kept calling them, kept emailing. I said, hey, what's going on? Do you have an opening or something? And mind you, at the time, I stayed in Loganville, Georgia, and this place was in Kennesaw, Georgia. So if anybody knows anything about Georgia, that was a haul for me. That was
Yeah.
like an hour and a half, almost 2 hour drive every morning and no, as a matter of fact, every afternoon was about 2.5 hours, right? So
Caught up in the traffic.
exactly. So it was about the perseverance though, right? I knew I wanted to do something better. I knew that I wanted to set the example. So I made the drive. I actually, well, initially, I actually spoke to multiple hiring managers within the company after the boot camp. And, unfortunately, I went to one hiring manager. They're like, well, we can't do anything. So I called the person that I spoke to at the boot camp and at the job fair. And he reached out to me. He was like, hey, I think we got a project for you. And I was like, oh, no. I was like, yeah, yeah, we got a project for you. And it's down in South Georgia. It's like the drive may be a little bit longer, but like, but, but we can get you on. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So, again, initially was driving to Kennesaw back and forth, and then started driving to this company back and forth about 2 hours every day, which was fine. I took the sacrifice, and there I just kept climbing. I started as just building a test cases, and the way that they portray this, or the way that they mention building test cases to everyone, is the fact that anyone can do it. I was like, no, no, I'm not. I'm better than that. So I was like, I can do more. So um, I actually started, getting my way into management, I would say. I started talking to people that were above my level, and then people that were above that level, right? I'll never forget having lunches with the CTO, having lunches with the VPs, and talking to them about how they got where they are, how they did it and what kept them going. And that just drove me, along with the passion that I had also, right? So eventually I became an engagement manager there. So I kept doing that. And then I actually got called to do multiple projects after that,
Well, I want to
and
ask you something. Your
mhm,
journey has a lot of like dedication. And
yeah,
to me, it feels like you went through these and you actually took the chance to, step through it. Like you did mention in the earlier parts that you did want to, be an attorney, and you went and learned a little bit about pre-law and you decided it wasn't for you. And then you still turned back into tech and you essentially flipped that stone over like, I'm gonna give it another try. So how do you still have
yeah.
that dedication and perseverance along this journey?
Wow. So it's a hunger for greatness. That's always what I tell myself. It's a hunger for greatness, and if you're not hungry, you don't get full. You know, and it's just like eating. Yeah, you can eat, but an hour after that, you're gonna be hungry again. You know, so when this is opportunity, when you have that plate in front of you, eat. You have to eat, right? And that's something that I've always done. That's something that I'm going to continue to do, because nobody's going to do it for you. You know, a lot of people say it's all about who you know. Yeah, that's part of it. But the other part is being hungry. The other part is perseverance. The other part is willing to sacrifice, willing to bleed, sweat, cry. I mean, those things are actually what drives you to that success. And to me, it's funny because a lot of people come to my house and like, oh man, you're successful. And I don't feel like I'm successful yet. I feel like I'm still climbing. I'm still getting there. So you got to stay hungry.
Was it, have you determined what your definition of success is or what it looks like? Because
That's a great question.
I'm like,
That
if
is
you
a
don't
great,
determine it, you're gonna continue climbing and aiming for it. So, what does it look like for you?
that's a great question. So I would say I'm very goal oriented. So I would say that what defines me as successful is, one, being financially free, right? I need to be able to wake up. And I told my son about this the other day. I said, you know what? Hey, I was like, I haven't made it until I can wake up and say I don't have to work today, but I'm just going to take a trip to London. You know what I mean? And he's like, oh yeah, that is financially free right there. I was like, yeah, exactly. That is financially free. But not just that, not just making the trip, but also coming back and not having to worry about any bills, you know, but still have this sense of leadership as well. So the other side to that is either owning my own company, or uh, having full full step into being an investor, right? So, and I've been reading Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey and all of them, and just trying to figure out what's the correct path to uh, not only financial freedom but also freedom, right? Having that ability to do what you want to do whenever you want to do it without having to worry about anything or anyone telling you you can't do this, you know what I mean, or
Mhm.
putting in vacation and stuff like that. So, so that's what I consider success to me.
I definitely like love the topics and what I'm figuring that stuff out too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually so much more to it that you wouldn't expect because essentially I try to talk to my family about it. They kind of never knew these sides of investing or the right ways to go about it because it's more so like a fear of what's on the other side of the fence. So it
Mm-hmm.
is like a whole
Mm-hmm.
like mindset shift going through it as well. And depending on like whose methods you follow, because like Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey, like I've listened to both of their stuff and they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum with the same goal.
Exactly.
So it's pretty interesting to see how like everybody has a different take on it. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
getting in my mind like you gotta go through and run through the trials and errors to figure out which one best suits you. So I don't know, maybe there is no correct path, but it is something to just go for. It's like a why not?
Oh, oh yeah, definitely, definitely, and that's definitely an interesting point you brought up because I try to talk to my family and they don't understand, and I guess because in our community, it's 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 something that wasn't really taught. You know what I mean? So the first step of leadership is learning that and bringing them on my shoulders and say, hey, this is what we should be doing. So it's not only just, and I think here's one of the misconceptions that we have is that it's not only moving forward with the future generations, it's also stepping back a generation. Let's say, hey, did you guys really get it? Because I don't think you really got it. You know what I mean? And then if you get it, maybe you can teach my siblings, and then my siblings can teach them. If I don't have the time to reach them or something like that. So I think that's one of the things that we also have to realize.
Ooh, let me circle it back to your tech journey. We have like roughly 10 minutes left. So you said software testing is where you got like your field that you enjoyed.
Hmm.
So elaborate
Yeah.
more on like what that is and like the boot camp that you went through. What skills did they teach you in order to be prepared for that role?
Wow, that's a great question. So at the boot camp, a huge part of it was communication, how to communicate to the customers, how to talk to customers. Outside of that, the technical abilities that we learned was software. What is software? Why does it need to be tested? Because a lot of consumers don't understand, hey, when you click Best Buy on Black Friday, that software had to be tested, you know? And I think as I grew up, I always loved quality things. So software testing was right up my alley because I was like, you know what? People build software, but it has to be quality software. It has to be right. It has to be correct. It has to function properly. So that's really, why I got into that. But again, in that boot camp, we learned a lot of that. We learned again, what is manual testing, where someone just, goes through and clicks a mouse and adds the steps for the test case. And how do we translate that to automation? At the time, I actually had the script in VB script and then, moved on to development and everything else. But we started with scripting and it sucked a little bit, but it was better along the way only because I was actually finishing school during the same time that I was going to the boot camp and becoming an engagement manager and everything.
Oh,
So,
you had a lot on your plate.
oh yeah. So, let alone, family and everything. So,
Mm.
I was basically going through the boot camp, working, finishing school, and then it was very unique because after I finished school, I said, you know what? I've got to break another gate. I got to go through another door because this is just it's not it. So I finished school, and I'm telling you, not even 4 months after I finished school, I got a call. It was actually an email through LinkedIn. They're like, "Hey, we have a new company that's starting up. We want to know if you want to join. Just give me a call." So I gave him a call, and he told me about the company. I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So this time it wasn't necessarily around scripting, but it was a something called a model-based, test automation. And what makes it really easy for people is that typically anyone can learn it, right? So it's really about building blocks. So an example would be if you're ordering a TV on Best Buy, you just go scan that page, and then you get all the objects on that page. And then if you want to scan the next page, you do the same thing. And after you get all these pages, you just put them all together like Lego blocks. So that's all it really is, right? And then that's how you build the test automation. And I've been in that ever since. But of course, I've broadened my knowledge. I've broadened my communication skills to be better, and I'm still doing that. So
Oh, what about the transition from like technical to management? So how did that work out for you? Or how
not
do
that
you
great. I'm just gonna be honest. And well, what I found through doing that is that it sounds pretty blunt, but a lot of times the people that we have in management don't need to be in management these days. So what I call it is more of like a new world order for me is that I took a step back from management, but I still decided to lead. So I lead teams without managing teams. And it's not that I don't, or it's not that I hate the paperwork. It's not that I hate the HR side of things. It's just that I've been realizing that in certain companies, it's really about, or it's all about who they know in some cases. So in those cases, I just take a step back. I lead, and you'll know when you're a true leader when people are calling you their manager or their boss, and you're not really. Somebody else is, then it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm a great leader. So I've decided to take that step back and lead people, lead teams to success instead of just managing, right? Because that's not intriguing to me. It's not exciting to me because you can be a manager, but you don't have to lead them. You don't have to be a leader to be a manager. So, and then you can be a leader without having to be a manager, right? So I'd rather take the leadership path instead of the management path. Now, if they fall together in the right opportunity, then yes, I'll go back. so,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's what
So,
it is.
all right. So what are some tips of like how others can get to where you are? Just like 3 to 4 tips, and then we'll move into the insightful quote.
I would say to never give up. That's the first thing. The second thing is learn. You always have to learn. And there's no excuse about learning. There's so many avenues. People have phones in their hands, and these phones offer so much valuable information and technology. There's no excuse to not be able to learn. Three, ask questions. Never be afraid to ask questions. And the list could go on, but those 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 are the main ones for me.
I feel like those are like 3 core values right there. Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
never giving up part. That right there kind of speaks so much volumes because I've seen so much stuff where they say it's really easy to get a job in tech. And I'm not saying it's, bad that it's easy. I'm saying that people go into the mindset that they expect it to be readily available. Maybe because of like how
Right.
everything is out there on social media and just like I got a job like in 2 minutes. So it's just
Yeah,
like there's
exactly.
there's a lot more that comes with it. So it's just having that expectation to know you're gonna go through so much and there's stepping stones and it's okay. Just keep going. So I just want to throw
Exactly.
that one out there.
Exactly.
All
Nobody's gonna
right.
start at the top, you know.
Yeah. Right. So what is a motivating and insightful quote that has helped you along your journey? I know you gave us the tips, But is there anything that's like something that's just sitting in the back of your head? It's just like, okay, this is the beat of my drum. I'm going.
I actually kind of explained it. I actually kind of slipped it in there earlier, but being hungry for greatness. And this is something that I've listened to through. So music, sorry, let me step back. So music actually touches me. So when I listen to something inspiring, it gets me through the day. So lately I've been listening to the Robert Glasper Experiment, and one of his tracks was Common, Stand Alone. At the end of that track, it's about being hungry for greatness. Because again, if we aren't hungry, we aren't going to get full. We will get passed by. So you always have to be hungry for greatness. Because again, I mean, I'm telling you, it's so easy to be overlooked now. But you got to be that spark of light because everybody can be.
All right, so I appreciate you coming on today's episode and really telling us the deep ends of it and just like having that motivation to keep going. And I really appreciate you. So if there is, any way that people can reach you or, at least follow you if you do have any social medias, I'll make sure to include it in the show notes. And
Right.
thank you guys for tuning in to Be Insightful in Technology and learning knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So tune in weekly. We will be moving these episodes to the weekends. So it'll be most likely Saturdays. So that way we can have more conversations around these topics. I do want to lead to more episodes around like the fundamental things. We all know that you need technical skills, but some people forget that there are soft skills that come along with this. And I want to touch on those. That has been one of the things that I've really noticed, at least on my journey. It's just like you can be technical as as much as you want, but those soft skills really come into play when it comes to those meetings, those being around management and just being around those higher level ups, being able to communicate, talk with them. I would say feel like a person more than a computer.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that
Exactly.
that's one of those things I really do want to touch on. So thank you for tuning in and see us again next time.